Good Wednesday morning, Sonor family. Jules here, and I don't normally do this on Wednesday morning, but man, things have just been so good lately. I had to throw out an extra day of this just to keep you up to speed. And if I look like I've been up to no good, I got some peppermint flavored shampoo in my eyeballs while I was showering. And if you think your eyes can't tell flavors, go put some peppermint in there, and I promise you, you're going to have a change of attitude there. Also, I recently did an interview, and I saw what I look like with a hat on, and I'm kind of preferring that considering how thin my hair is getting. So I think I'm going to rock this hat look for a while. I always change things up from time to time anyway. Sometimes I've got hair, sometimes I don't, sometimes I have common sense, usually not. So anyway, the biggest convincing I thought was going to be trying to make my wife understand why I was wearing a hat to bed. But then I realized I didn't have one. I mean, I've got a hat. I don't have a wife. I did have a wife, but she became defective, and we got where we just couldn't get along. And finally, things deteriorated to a point one time she just broke down and said, "Hey, Jules, why don't you treat me like you did the first time we went out on a date?" And I said, "You know what? I think you hit the nail on the head." So took her out to dinner and took her to her mom's house, and that was the end of that. So enough about all that good stuff. Went to see Styx Sunday, and what a great show that was. And got a little time with Todd afterwards, and we did the interview that you may or may not have seen. The link is in the description if you have not. It was a quick impromptu video. It wasn't planned. I had planned it. I had planned what I was going to ask if I could get him to go along with that. And these guys are out there working, touring, and they're all that stuff. And it was just a huge delight for me that Todd took the time to do that. And you know what? It was a great tone. We had a little fun with it. And what an awesome guy that is. And, I think Todd's the kind of guy that even if he wasn't a world class drummer with the hottest prog rock band on the planet, I think he'd be a fun next door neighbor, even if he was just, worked a 9 to 5 job somewhere. It's just kind of the kind of guy he seems to be. And as I've also said before, he's not putting on a front. I've spent some extended time with him before, and there's not a facade he keeps up while people are looking, and then when he lets his hair down, he's this other guy. That's just not the case. Speaking of awesome people, here's a picture for you. This is me surrounded by rock stars. Now, when I say rock stars, I mean three hardworking guys that take music seriously, that take their craft seriously. Two of them aren't in the limelight like Todd is, but they are rock stars in their own right. On the far left in the picture is Jeff Heinz. He's the guy that I interviewed a few months back that had filled in for Todd in March when Todd was hospitalized with food poisoning. And to the right of him is Mark Petroselli, and that is Todd's drum tech. And both of these guys are just humble, down to earth guys. Both of them agreed to do interviews, and then I had to kind of nudge them because as it got closer to time, um, you know, they're just not arrogant guys. They weren't sitting there just waiting on the opportunity to tell somebody, yeah, I've got this awesome job and this is how great I am. And, very far from it. Hardworking guys, absolute class acts. And since I had interviewed all three of them this year, I was really excited about meeting Jeff and Mark. And, it didn't occur to me to get a picture with all the guys until somebody suggested it. And I'm like, you know what? I would love nothing better than to be in a picture with these folks. And so it's always nice meeting with Todd and doing the impromptu video on the spot. The interview was great, absolutely phenomenal. But honestly, I already know Todd. I already know what kind of guy Todd is. Meeting Jeff and Mark really was the icing on the cake for the evening for me, and that was just so awesome. And I can't wait till one day, maybe we can all do it again. Maybe sometime they'll be around where they got some downtime and we can go do a dinner or something together. But anyway, so I've mentioned the new interview from a couple of, actually I posted it yesterday. I'm also going to put pictures. Also going to put links in the description of the interviews with Mark, talking about being the drum tech for Todd, and talking about Todd and the kind of guy he is. Same thing with Jeff, except we're going to talk in depth about the challenge of filling in for Todd and the fact that there is so much backstory. If you haven't seen the interview with either one of those, you need to watch both. The one with Jeff, it was it on the surface. I kind of went into the interview not realizing there's a big backstory, and it really kept the interview exciting for me because I did not do a lot of preliminary questioning of him. I've got where I prefer to do these things more on the fly. We actually get more information doing it that way than if I go in there with a list of questions and I'm just trying to do a question and answer type thing. That's for the birds. Uh, Somebody that's got more of a refined profile, a format can do that. I'm doing this my way, and my way is just to talk. We're just talking, and I do a lot of talking in the Zoom call, and I cut almost all that stuff out. Y'all don't want to hear me talk. You're not. This is what you listen to me for: is coffee with Jules, and sometimes this product stuff and all that. When it comes to the interviews, I'll let them be the star. They don't know me, so we actually have a pretty big back and forth. I've got one coming out soon. We actually talked for 3.5 hours, and it was a lot of back and forth. He was intrigued by a lot of what I had to say. That's not going to make it to the final cut. That's not what you're here for. We're going to focus on him, which is how I run these interviews now. So, anyway, getting back to my point about Jeff, there was so much backstory and downright uh, coincidence. Not even coincidence. You'll see. If you haven't watched, go watch it. You'll find some elements to that pretty ironic. That's the word I'm looking for here. Ironic. So just going right on down the list. When I did the interview with Todd, Mike Eckert from the Atlanta Drum Shop was my cameraman, and his son Guy was had a voiceover part in the video, and appreciate all of them. I've been doing these interviews since 2008, starting with Todd actually, and I've had periods of where I didn't do anything, and I've been wanting to ramp back up with it. And November, Mike allowed me to come up and help him out with Todd's master classes. And long story short, that became a catapult for what was going to become the current branding Sonor Talk. And so I owe Mike a lot of thanks for that from the Atlanta Drum Shop. He opened a door for me that allowed a lot of other doors to open. And I've just my old friend Uncle Ed used to say, "Don't forget who brought you to the dance." And even though I've done all this in the past, and on my own, Michael was really instrumental in some timing that otherwise would not have led to the quick success, if you want to call it success, that the channels had. So big shout out to Atlanta Drum Shop and specifically Mike Eckert. And if you don't have a local drum shop, I highly recommend you let him be your local drum shop. You're going to get really good service. He's always had a respect for the Sonor brand, but I think more and more and more he's really getting excited about being a Sonor dealer. He got into the dealership this year, kind of after some urging of me and Todd, and he did it. We got him really pumped up. He's already a good resource for your Sonor stuff, but going forward, more and more and more, he's going to gain a lot of momentum. And so, if you don't have a local drum shop that takes care of you with your Sonor gear, by all means, reach out to Mike. Let's see what else is on the list. Okay, I'm going to do a product focus. I got an interview that I'm going to have out to you Saturday. If I don't get it out Saturday, it'll be Sunday or early next week. There's really no reason not to have it out to you Saturday. But this is a Sonor artist. He's gigging with AQ2s. Now, as we all know, Germany's got their fingerprints all over that stuff. It's not like the days where they were. the lower end of the spectrum on Sonor was just kind of the cheapest thing they could crank out and try to have it somewhat resembling Sonor product enough for the Force 503 specifically. They basically took the same kit that was the Honor Rockwood, and I always called it the Honor Rockweed, but I'm saying Rockwood for the people that don't know what kind of goofball I am. But they basically took a Sonor Rockwood and put some upgraded mounts on it and branded it Sonor. Now, there may have been more. Maybe the shells were a little bit better shells than the Rockwood, but as a retailer, with having both sets sitting side by side and then having bona fide Sonor stuff on the floor, you can't take the Force 5003 seriously. And with the AQ2 series, it seems like somebody at Sonor said, you know what, going forward, or at least for this moment in time, I hope going forward, at this moment in time, if we put the Sonor brand on something, we're not going to fall below such and such specs. So, in other words, they're not going to put an El Cheapo snare throw off that's going to have you all pissed off and aggravated with your low end drum purchase. The AQ series has the the nice throw off. And I'm just using that as a single example, but I have owned and gigged AQX, which right now is the starting point of the Sonor line. And you know what? They're great. Are they on par with an SQ2? Well, hell no. But how could you expect it to be? Do you expect the Ford Escort to be on par with a Lincoln Navigator? They're all Ford products. So you're looking at apples and oranges here. But with the AQ line, there is some real thought into the fact that okay, somebody should be able to expect when they buy something brand new that's got this Sonor brand on it, they should be able to expect a product they can use without headaches and hassles. And that I like very much. I also had a set of AQ1s that were birch shelled, and they sounded great. The bass drum was a Cannon. I added a floor tom. I loved it. The only reason I got rid of it is because financially I was in a position to do something better. Actually stepped away from Sonor very briefly because of the fact there is such a gap between the AQ2s and the SQ1s, and there are a lot of offerings in between there from other companies that are really viable options. And I'm not trying to talk Sonor down. This is just reality. And used to not be such a gap, but just the way things are, that's the way it has worked out. Hopefully, there's going to be something to fill the void. There's a lot of customers that buy within those two price points. I know because I know what's out there and I see people buying it and playing it. So, at any rate, let me get back on track. AQs are a great line of drums at a phenomenal price. I have not personally owned AQ2s, but based on my intimate knowledge with AQXs and AQ1s, AQ2s are a continuation of the upper of the AQ line with maple shells. And I think the fact that a guy like the one I'm going to release the interview soon, that a guy like that who has other options is out there gigging with AQ2s, I think substantiates the fact that, yeah, those are serious drums. Well designed, well engineered, well executed. And, you take either one of those out, you don't have anything worth having. But the thought and design and all that behind all this stuff these days is serious. So I would put AQ2s up against anything else in its class easily. And my friend Mike at Atlanta Drum Shop has AQ2s on the floor. And while I was up there this weekend, I had planned to go to his shop and get some pictures and all that, maybe some video. It worked out. I needed to get on back. There wasn't an emergency or anything, but I just had business things going on. I had to get taken care of. But there will be a video coming out that's going to be a spotlight on the AQ2s. It's not going to be a hands-on where I've actually A beat them with other things like that, but we're going to talk about the AQ2s, the details, my experience with certain components, like some of the hardware pieces and all that. I'm intimately familiar with all that stuff. So be looking for that. And this is all possibly a lead in to something bigger and better. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. Maybe you just need to keep your eyes open and see what's going on. That would be my big suggestion right now. Just pay attention, watch the interview when it comes out, watch the video when I get it done and out to you, and just keep on watching. We will talk to you soon. Thank you.